Hey, welcome to Psychology, Chapter 15. It's time for us to talk about tests. Section 1, Psychological Tests assess the abilities and feelings and attitudes and behavior. For a psychological test to be useful and accurate, it has to be standardized, reliable, valid, and have norms for scoring. Computers can be used to administer tests and help students prepare for tests. So the main idea in this first section is psychological tests include achievement tests, aptitude tests, interest tests, and personality tests. So what are some of the uses of psychological tests should be one of your questions that you are able to answer. What are 4 important features of psychological tests, and how can computers be used in testing? Achievement tests determine how much students have learned. Aptitude tests and interest tests determine whether he or she is suited for certain occupations. Personality tests identify the psychological traits that make up a person's personality, and tests claim to be able to predict a student's future behaviors, such as benefiting from certain educational experiences or succeeding in college. Behavior rating scales are used to measure behavior in such places as classrooms and hospitals. Self-reports rely on answers from people about their feelings and their experiences. Standardization. Standardized tests are administered and scored the same way every time. Some experts question the validity of these tests, and this is a controversy that we see ongoing in the school environment because people are always concerned about whether we should test students or not at the end of the year with a standardized test put out by the state. Reliability and validity are 2 of the concerns about a test. Reliability is a test consistency. Validity is the extent to which the test measures and predicts accurately. Validity scales question that allow the scorer to know whether the test answer is answering truthfully or not. So reliability means that when we test you on a topic and you score roughly the same thing each time, then it's a reliable test. It's valid if it's actually testing what you know. Norms. Norms are established standards of performance that set averages. A norm group is a large group of test takers that are similar to those for whom the test is intended. So for you guys, it would be the norm would be who NLO students and NLO psychology students would be your group. Computers can be used to administer tests and to help students prepare for tests such as the SAT and the ACT. Practice tests contain detailed tutorials and practice questions recommended strategies. Computerized assessment system for psychotherapy evaluation and research, or a CASPER test, is one computer-based psychological test that asks a wide variety of questions about relationships and activities in life, satisfaction, and behavior. People find CASPER user-friendly, and results appear to be more consistent when the test is administered on a computer. Section 2. Measuring achievement, abilities, and interests. 3 major kinds of tests measure achievement, aptitudes, and interests. Achievement tests measure people's skills and knowledge in the specific academic areas. Aptitude tests measure a specific set of skills. Vocational aptitude tests help people figure out what their interests are. So the main idea of this particular section is the achievement tests and aptitude tests are both commonly administered to students in high school. So what should you be able to answer? What do achievement tests measure? What do aptitude tests measure? And how do people distinguish between achievement and aptitude? What are 2 vocational interest inventories? Achievement tests measure people's skills and the knowledge that they have in specific academic areas. History or math tests are examples of achievement tests. Intelligence and motivation play roles, but so does learning. Students who wish to go to graduate school may be required to take a test in the major field of study. Tests are designed to show whether students have enough knowledge in the specific area to succeed. Aptitude tests measure whether a person is likely to do well in a given field of work or study. Scholastic assessment test is a general aptitude test. The SAT predicts how well students are likely to do to college. They can even predict approximately what your grade point will be. The law school admission test and medical college admission test uses a percentile grade equivalent score. Aptitude is not only a factor that influences achievement in school. You need to have a positive attitude, placing a high value on education, perseverance, and optimism. Aptitude tests are intended to measure potential for learning in a specific area. They are usually given before a person has had any training in a specific area, and it's used to predict how well that person will do in that area. However, current abilities and future successes are often based on past achievements. The SAT consists of verbal and quantitative parts that test the amount one has learned or achieved. It may be that there is no such thing as a pure aptitude test. People usually perform better in jobs that interest them, and people who share interests with those who are successful at a job are more likely to be successful. Vocational interest inventories help find interests. Forced choice format is the test taker is forced to choose one of the answers, even if none seems to fit exactly. Results show interests such as science, music, art, literature, etc. The Campbell Interest Skill Survey, not as direct as the Cooter test, compares a test taker's interest with interests of people successful in various jobs. Evaluation of interest inventories. They are useful to students who do not have specific career goals, and tests provide only one source of guidance. Implicit attitude tests. These tests measure what people's actions reveal to them to implicitly or unconsciously believe. Many implicit attitude tests reveal that many people have unstated and unacknowledged prejudices based on race and gender. One test reveals that both white and black test takers are more likely to perceive black men as a threat. Project Implicit studies beliefs about disabilities, religion, body, weight, and age. Most people have biases against women in positions of power and authority. Many people have revealed prejudice against obese people. Some recent research says that answers might change if the test taker knows the results will be made public. Section 3. Personality tests. Objective tests present test takers with standardized test group items found in the form of a questionnaire. Projective tests have no clearly specified answers and use an open-ended format. So the main idea on these type of tests are objective tests or projective tests that can help to describe and measure various aspects of an individual's personality. So what are objective tests and how do you describe projective tests? A person's personality consists of his or her characteristics, habits, preferences, and moods. Psychologists sometimes use tests to determine psychological problems. Objective tests present test takers with a standardized group of test items in the form of a questionnaire. Most widely used is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. It consists of true-false questions and can determine psychological problems as well as tendencies. Scores are placed on the scale that helps determine problems. The California Psychological Inventory, or the CPI, is designed to test normal personality traits. The CPI is more reliable than the MMPI. and it seems to be a better indicator of success, leadership, and reactions to stress. Projective tests are asked, test takers are asked to report what the stimuli represents to them. It's done in an open-ended format. There are no specified answers. The Rorschach inkblot test, which is a famous test, takers look at an inkblot and they tell the psychologist what it looks like to them. Attempts to standardize the Rorschach conclude that 4 factors influence answers: location, determinants, content, and form. Thematic appreciation tests, or appreception tests, the test takers are given a card with an illustration and are directed to tell a story about what is occurring in the picture. The test taker's answer can reveal his or her needs or values. So these tests are really more like conversation starters during psychoanalysis, more so than actual reliable tests. Section 4, taking tests. Here's a section that will really be important to you all, because this should give you some really good tips on how to do well on a test. Students can follow some general tips to improve their performance on tests. Multiple choice questions are common on standardized tests such as the SAT. There are ways for students to reduce test anxiety. So the main idea for this section is taking tests can be nerve-wracking experience, but there are ways to improve your performance. So by the end of this, what you should be able to answer are what are some of the tips for taking a test. Multiple choice questions are found on what sorts of tests, and what are some warning flags in true-false questions. What strategies can you use for short answer and essay questions, and how can you reduce test anxiety? Some students know that the material being tested yet still perform poorly on tests. You might think that you have a little control over the tests you take, but there are many things students can do to take charge of the test. Gather information before the test. Learn where and when the next test will be given. Find out what kinds of questions will be asked. Ask previous students where the questions come from, and then practice. Plan regular study periods. Remember that 20 minutes I told you to do? Create a study group. If you have lots of friends in your class, or even just you can make friends in class and create a study group to help you do better. Define key terms and outline essay questions. Answer all questions, even those not assigned. At the end of each chapter, there's a whole bunch of questions at the end of the chapter, and you can answer those questions to help you do well on the test. Be test wise. Read and follow directions. Bring the right materials to class. Have working pens and paper. Ask the teacher if you can use a dictionary or calculator if you need one. In my classes, that's rarely going to be an issue, but it could be. Multiple choice questions. Multiple choice questions encourage students to focus on the right answer and reject the wrong ones, and they can be graded quickly and objectively. The hints to answering multiple choice questions is try to answer before you look at the choices. Consider every possible choice. Look for answers that are opposite. One of them is likely to be the answer. Look at the best choice listed. Mark difficult questions so that you can come back to them later. Guess only when the odds of gaining points outweighs the odds of losing points. Change your answer if you think you made a mistake. Taking multiple choice tests. You can make odds work in your favor on a multiple choice exam. How? By taking into account some of the percentages listed below, which were compiled by research at Rutgers University as well as other scholars. By playing these odds, you can become more intelligent test takers. 50% if you can eliminate 2 choices. You have increased your odds to 1 in 2 or 50%. 57.8% percentage answers that go from wrong to right when changed. So fixing your answer is better than not. 20.2% of the answers that go from right to wrong when changed. Okay. 22.8% is percentage of answers that go from wrong to wrong when changed. True-false questions are tricky questions. For the item to be true, every part of it must be true. Be wary of items that use absolutes such as all, always, or never. Items that provide more information or are longer than others tend to be true. Short answer and essay questions. Short answer items ask the test taker to give a brief response to the question. Answer in brief but complete sentences. Include significant terms in your answer. Avoid simply restating the question in different terms or making circular arguments. Use detail if time and space allow. Essay question hints. Make certain you understand the question. Make a quick outline before beginning to write. Express your strongest ideas first. Test anxiety. Some students experience feelings of dread and foreboding before and during exams, especially for the end-of-course exams that may determine whether you pass or fail. Some test-anxious students allow negative thoughts and self-doubts to distract them from the test. So be prepared. Review the material beforehand. Remember, you need to look at the information in pieces, chunks, I should say. Remember when we talked about memory, if you chunk the information, you'll remember it better. Avoid cramming or preparing hastily for exam. Trying to read everything in one night usually won't help you very much. It'll help, but it won't help as much as if you break it up into chunks and study it bit by bit. Plan regular study sessions. And like I said, you should dedicate at least 20 minutes for studying every day, depending on how many classes you have and how much time you need. Review materials even after you think you have mastered them. So even though you know it, you should go back over and look at it again just to be sure. Think helpful thoughts. Cognitive restructuring is an important thing. Write down negative thoughts and replace them with positive thoughts. Instead of thinking of bad things, think good things. That concludes our chapter for today. This was a short one. So that finishes up chapter 15, and that would be unit 5. We look forward to talking to you for the next chapter, which will be chapter 16.